So, we did this for the base game, and now I wanted to find out how many of the new 43 bosses can you reach from the very start of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Let's find out. We enter Gravesite Plain, the first area of the DLC, making sure to grab the area's map so we can plan our boss route. With number 1 being in the area's mausoleum, the Black Jail Knight, first one on the board. Chatted with some of the new NPCs, and then headed to the nearby lake, meeting our first Ghost Flame Dragon. We'll be seeing him a few times. After marking that one off, we head to the nearby Ballarat Jail, which included a little bit of platforming and a head bonk, reaching the deepest level, meeting demi-human Swordmaster this guy. Then went and met the DLC's best NPC, although he does have one bit of competition we'll meet later on. In the meantime, race through and around the various enemies of the Ballarat settlement, making good use of the iframes we get when opening doors, and face the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. What a name. Now that is one big ram. Headed over the bridge, getting closer to the Erdtree, and we're already going for our second Remembrance boss. Didn't do quite as well with the door opening this time though. Eventually got past and met Balana. And the voice acting award of 2024 goes to
Vile Bale! Oh, terror incarnate!
Got to give shout out to Richard Linton. You did not have to go this hard, but we are all the better for it. Now, a thing I haven't mentioned yet is that, of course, we cannot beat any boss to progress, which means that we are now halted by the ancient Dragon Man, as since we can't get past him, we cannot enter Jagged Peak, which is a shame, but I'm sure Egon's having some fun there without us. Now you might think we're a bit stuck at the moment with R'Larna blocking our way, but by heading south through the poison swamps, we eventually reach this spirit spring. Ignoring the puzzle aspect by just solving with Margit Shackle, we spring up to the Fort of Reprimand, and with a quick hello to Black Knight Edred within the fort, then going past another Ghost Flame Dragon, who seemed at the minute to be having a bit of beef with the locals, so we left him to that. And finally reaching Leda without having to deal with R'Larna at all. Picking up a certain gesture next to her, we then head east, meeting Dane, who by using said gesture, we can face him in a fight, although he finished us pretty quickly. Grab the next map fragment, and since we were close anyway, also grabbed Ralva the Great Red Bear. Then before heading further, needed to backtrack just a little bit, back to Gravesite for one that I'd missed. Heading north from Castle Front, we end up at Fogriff Catacombs, where the gremlins from base game are back. After unsuccessfully navigating the trap rooms, managed to get to the end and to our first Death Knight. Return to Dane, we drop down into the Morth Ruins, traversing through, eventually popping out at Bonnie's village, where we grab this gesture, which will come in handy later. For now though, just outside the village we find another jail, containing the Cursed Blade Labyrinth. Now we could progress out from the village, but want to leave just for now, so instead grabbed a Grace and headed back to the Fort of Reprimand. Dropping back down the Spirit Springs, and we took a different route through the Poison Swamp, reaching the river below, with the upstream route taking us to Rivermouth Cave, where we tried to not interrupt the group meeting going on, failing slightly, and then faced the Chief Bloodfiend. Then taking the downstream route, taking us, after sneaking past the local furnace golem, to the Cerulean Coast, containing our third and final Ghost Flame Dragon. I had forgotten a boss, so it was a quick trip back to Leda, as needed to visit Fogriff Fort. As dropping down the ridges, across the roof, we come across the Black Knight Garu, who has the longest delayed attack ever made. With him ticked off though, we could head back to the Land of the Blue Flowers, where we have quite a bit to do. First, through a ravine, we eventually reach the beach and face demi-human Chief Mariga. Second, using an underground path, we reach the Split Off Island, visiting our second mausoleum, the southern one, and a dancer boss, who absolutely roasts us. And for now, finishing off the southern part of the map by grabbing 2 Graces we'll need shortly. Number 1 being down this deep pit, where Mikkel has put up his own little roadblock for us, and the next being at the Finger Ruins. Again, this is an area we'll be doing something with a bit later on. With those Graces prepped, another trip back to Leda and to the Shadow Keep, where we get a curious line of dialogue about a great rune breaking. We'll check that out in a sec. First though, the Golden Hippopotamus, which for some reason I find this such a funny boss name, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just the normalness of it. Star Scourge Radahn, Messmer the Impaler, Moog, Lord of Blood. Golden Hippopotamus. Since we can't get past him though, headed back to that blood gate from earlier, now having opened up due to that dialogue piece. Getting through the fissure with several long drop downs, one being unintentional. Finishing with one last base jump, where we must have some pretty sturdy knees and ankles to survive this drop. As a reward, greeting the Putrescent Knight. Wasn't an awfully long greeting though. With that done, we are now finished with the bottom half of the map, and although we may not be able to continue past the hippo, by continuing the path from Bonnie's village from earlier, we can enter Shadowkeep through the church district entrance. First I had to deal with the castle's plumbing issues so that we could access the main section, but now we have a ton of options to pick from. As if you didn't know, the Shadowkeep has 7 entrances or exits to the place. 2 we've already dealt with, but plenty left. Before we deal with any of those though, with a bit of climbing and making use of some more iframes, we are able to reach the top of Shadowkeep and face as a potential very first boss of the DLC, the man himself, Messmer the Impaler, who in my opinion is an S tier boss. Definitely in my top 5 DLC bosses at least. Now, onto the exits in this place. By heading back to the bottom, we call the lift up to explore what is behind the golden hippo, without having to beat it, which is useful, as by dropping down here, getting drenched walking through a waterfall, rolling into a fate wall, and then taking a joyride in a coffin, we enter a completely new section. The initial part we reach doesn't really have anything interesting for this challenge, but by continuing down the ravine, we reach our 3rd mausoleum, this one containing Rakshasa, who by the way has one of my favourite weapons in the DLC. Then by progressing even further down, requiring some stone steps conveniently placed in the walls, we arrived at the Dark Light Catacombs, containing the biggest fire blasting gremlin you've ever seen. After him though, we faced Yori, or Yori, the Elder Inquisitor. Not sure on pronunciation. Now because we can't beat him, we can't enter the Abyssal Woods, so this path ends here. Back to Shadowkeep, still 4 routes to go. For the next one, we head down the lift below the keep. Past some pots, which, theorising a bit, being a medical room, may be the place Messmer is trying to fix the citizens from Marika's village, but who knows. I'll leave that stuff to Vati. Continuing on, across a bridge, past the Flame Sorceress, and onto the ancient ruins of Rao, where we were pretty easily able to reach the end and face Romina. But she's not the only one around here to get. Sorry, Torrent. We find another dancing lion, but didn't last long enough in the fight to see the deathblight phase this guy has over the Bellarat one. Done here for the ruins above, but there's still more at ground level. Headed back to Skadu Altus, we head past some spirit worms through a small ravine, arriving at Miyazaki's favourite, another poison swamp. Honestly surprised he didn't add a deathblight swamp to the DLC. After trudging our way through, we reached this base, where with another completely intended use of Magia's Shackle, unlocking the Spirit Spring, letting us arrive at our final mausoleum and the Red Bear NPC waiting within. After return to ground level, where after sprinting through the area's catacombs, we find another Death Knight, who wasn't really bothered about gravity magic. Then leaving the final boss for this place, waiting outside, being another Red Bear, this one being a bit bigger though. Return to Shadowkeep, we've still got 3 exits to find in this place, with the first of the 3 finding after a bit of exploring, climbing the rafters, then this casual lift here on the side of the castle, then another lift to reach the next boss. Being Timon and Pumbaa, who also aren't that bothered about gravity magic. Now, next, remember the gesture we grabbed earlier? Well, time to use it. To the room to the right before Gaius, we can enter and use the gesture at the statue, unlocking the path into the hinterlands, and finding not just 1, but 2 tree sentinels. And also a local falling star beast. Just those guys though, so quite a short visit here to be honest. That just left 2 more bosses of the DLC for us, with one final trip to Shadowkeep, heading down from the Specimen Lab back to the Church District. We continue down on the longest lift ever created, and end up fighting the deadliest sunflower in the lands between. After that bit of gardening was done, just left 1 to go, who we can reach, but is going to take a few trips. One to the church in Skadu Altus, in order to nestle the Count Ymir, whose quest we need to speedrun. Thankfully we've done the prep work for this, so teleported to the 2 set finger runes, using some finger foghorns, which is a phrase I never thought I would say, in order to get some talismans. Then after a bit more lore nattering, we can descend under the church, whilst Ymir's off on his midnight stroll, where after defeating the guard NPC, we can use our final finger foghorn and meet Metir, Mother of Fingers, and our final boss in this run. Meaning you can reach and beat 33 bosses in the Elden Ring DLC as our very first boss when entering this place. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next one.